All right, thank you for joining. It's July 29, and I keep thinking in my mind about the scriptures. There's a number of them, Deuteronomy 4, Deuteronomy 6, and then also in Hebrews. But it talks about that our God is a consuming fire. Deuteronomy 9 actually says, therefore understand today that the Lord your God, he goes over before you as a consuming fire. Lord, I'm praying for that, the revelation of you as a consuming fire. Lord, you're the fire that purifies. You're the fire that goes before your people. You're the consuming fire, Lord, that burns up dross. And so that's what I'm praying today, Lord, for that revelation. It should be a good kind of fear of God that hits all of us about the fact that you are a consuming fire. So, Lord, bless our time. Thank you for Moshe on today. We really celebrate who he is and who you've made him to be, Father. So thank you. Thank you for this community of believers that pray every day. Amen. Well, Moshe, all things, everything that you want us to, you see that we can really target in prayer, please
Yeah.
share. And in your sharing, help illuminate some of this humanitarian aid getting into Gaza. Of course, it's a big topic. We do know that there's lying in some of the media reporting. Even it's been proven now that one of the kids, that's a Palestinian, that was shown to be so emaciated. It's actually, he has a genetic disorder, a genetic illness that caused that, not starvation. And yet, it's like, what's the real deal? And then I also want to get your comments on last week's resolution in the Knesset about Judea and Samaria going towards sovereignty, which sounds wonderful. But over to you. Thanks, Moshe.
Thank you for, first of all, good morning. Good to see everyone. Um, I have been gone on vacation. I was in Muskoka for a week.
Nice.
Really just it was lovely, but was completely disconnected, which was good, and also a bit of a revelation because it was like, wow, you can really get consumed with all this stuff.
Yes.
And so it's an important reminder to take a step back and realize that, you know what, the world's still spinning and God is still in control, and we can enjoy nature and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
What's happening in Israel? So, the famine in Gaza, myth, reality. So this is an interesting one. It's not the first time that that this has come up in the last since October 7th. And it's interesting that the timing that it always comes up. So first of all, I want to say that we should never lose our humanity in the midst of war. And this is a tough one because, even though there's facts, right, there's still people that are suffering. And unfortunately, the Palestinians of Gaza are suffering. They are, experiencing their homelessness and lack of food and things like that. But then the question is, why are they suffering? And who's in charge of that? Who's causing that suffering, right? And I know you guys know, you're very in tune and you're praying. But if I can't tell you how many people, and I've been kind of offline the last 2 weeks. I don't know if anyone's kind of noticed that. I've been relaxing. And I cannot tell you how many people have been messaging me, reaching out to me. And I'm talking like people who know, right? People
Mhm.
who know this information and stuff, especially pastors here in Canada. They're texting me, but like, hey, what's the story here? Like, a lot of my people are asking, and like, that people are really concerned. They should be. There is suffering happening, and I pray every day that God intervenes and reveals himself to the people of Gaza and, Hamas as well. We got to pray for our enemies. But we are in a true propaganda war here in North
Mhm.
America, and
Mhm.
it's incredible how people have not learned where to find information and who to listen to. So I posted a link in the chat. This is a very important resource for anyone who's asking some serious questions about, how much food is actually going in. What
Okay.
is Israel doing to facilitate aid in Gaza? So this is a website. It's a government website. It's called COGAT, Coordination of Government Activities in the Territories. The link is there. Just read. Read what it says. Some of you might be already familiar with this, but here's the thing. Israel has been since October 7th, Israel has been sending in aid to Gaza almost on a daily basis. There's been pauses, there's been times where they pull back and stuff, but for the most part, the only nation actually giving food to Palestinians in Gaza is Israel. Yes,
Mm,
there's, Jordan is airdropping stuff, Egypt is airdropping stuff, all that stuff, but it's minuscule compared to what Israel's actually facilitating. So that's number one. So aid is going in. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is an American joint America-Israeli thing that's happening, they're facilitating free food distribution, and it's incredible to see how that works. But basically, the strategy is if Hamas doesn't control the food, then there's a chance that Hamas will, or the population will decouple from Hamas's control over them. And so this
right.
is where Israel's been trying to do what they do. Israel or the IDF doesn't want to facilitate food distribution. They shouldn't do that, and they don't want to do that because then it'll really split their focus on what their mission is. So that leaves a problem. Who's left to distribute the food? And so I'm sure you've seen on social media and just a lot of independent news reporters out of Gaza that are showing massive pallets, tons of food, literally pallets of food sitting in the distribution areas, but no
Yeah.
one is distributing it. Part of the reason why is because the UN doesn't have the infrastructure. And not only that, a lot of the UN employees and people are there, a lot of them were Hamas people.
Hmm.
And since then, they've either gone into hiding or they've been killed or whatever. And so the UN can only do so much. They can only distribute so much during the day. So a lot of it just gets sit there, rots. Um, but Israel is doing its part. So where's the problem? I think it was around July 21st, where, I think it was the New York Times. They came out with this, article saying that Hamas is losing its control over Gaza. They're broke. They don't have money to pay their soldiers. There was a moment where we saw maybe something is actually turning in Gaza, where Hamas could actually be like, you know what, we're done. Oh, and there was a ceasefire kind of negotiations going on. Literally within 24, maybe more than a day passed by, and then all of a sudden you see a picture of a Palestinian woman with her child, who's, skin and bones. It looks terrible. It really is painful to look at the picture. But it was run by the BBC, CNN, New York Times, like every single major news outlet calling for ceasefire because there's now major famine happening in Gaza, all because of one picture.
Wow.
And that basically just blew up, right? And so since then, Israel said, okay, we're going to facilitate more aid. We're going to have humanitarian pauses, all these things. Long story short, this is not new. It's the same propaganda war we've been fighting. And guess
Yeah.
what? After that happened, the public pressure was now on Israel, to facilitate aid and stuff. Where's the public pressure not being put on? It's not being put on Hamas. No one's asking
Right.
about the hostages,
Right.
you
Right.
know, all that stuff. So all these things. I think that we just need to continue to pray that the prevails, that God, breaks through this veil of darkness and stupor. And honestly, I'm at a point now where again I'm having a lot of conversations offline with pastors. They're
Mm,
getting a lot of their congregants asking them and complaining to them, because they want to stand with Israel, they want to pray for the
yeah.
peace of Jerusalem and all those things, but then they're getting this kind of like, especially the younger generation, like what about the Palestinians, da 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 da. So there's a lot of those conversations happening. It's so important to be equipped with the truth. The website I put on the chat is gives you all the details of what is going into Gaza. And by the way, this is undisputed facts. There's
Mm,
no organization out there saying, "Oh, it's the IDF." There's no like this is actually happening. This is verified information. So that's good. Gaza annexation is also part of this. Because Israel is now facilitating aid, and there's a huge conversation happening in Israel about what do we do next? Which lane are we choosing here? Are we facilitating aid? Are we destroying Hamas? Are we trying to free the hostages? There's confusion. Again, I feel like we kind of go through these cycles over and over as Israelis. The next 48 hours, even though the Knesset has been not prorogued, recessed, the next 48 hours, certain Knesset members are going to convene to discuss the possibility of annexing territory in Gaza.
okay.
That'll be something we're watching because that's a huge deal. If that happens, the world's going to be in a complete uproar, but there is nothing else that Israel can do. There
Hmm.
is there it's crazy. We fought against Iran, we fought against Hezbollah, we fought against the Houthis, but yet we cannot seem to just nail this thing down with Hamas.
Hmm.
There's lots more problems, but anyways, so the Gaza annexation thing is going to be something to watch for. That'll happen in the next 48 hours. Um, PTSD and suicide among the IDF. This is something that hurts deeply because I know a lot of people who are suffering from PTSD in Israel. I mentioned last time I was on, one of my family members is also going through some serious mental health things. Ynet, an Israeli media outlet, released figures. They did a huge, extensive study about soldiers in the IDF. Right now, there's about almost 4,000 soldiers who are diagnosed with PTSD, and meaning they're considered disabled IDF soldiers that have PTSD, with another 9,500 waiting to be assessed. So
Mm.
that's close to 15,000. Plus, you have almost 100,000. They say by the end of this war, there'll be almost 100,000 wounded IDF soldiers to various degrees, whether it's fully, limbs been, blown off or whatever, to minor scrapes and scratches. The point is that the next few years in Israel is there's going to be a massive mental health strain. It's already happening, but this report that just came out of Ynet. I'm going to send you the article in Hebrew. You can click on the translate buttons in the chat. It just shows how widespread and devastating the mental health crisis is among the IDF soldiers. That's not even counting the whole nation who's
Mm.
experienced PTSD and all this stuff. And suicide, unfortunately, this just in the month of July, there's been about 6 cases of IDF soldiers committing suicide because of, PTSD and all this trauma and stuff. And since October 7th, the number of suicides is about 38, which doesn't sound like a lot, but considering that in an average year, suicides among soldiers in Israel is about 10, it's a lot. And so these are things that are, this is the stuff that obviously the international news doesn't report on because we're talking about Gaza, we're talking about humanitarian crisis and stuff. But
Yeah.
anyways, and then anyways, please pray about that. And then the last thing I want to mention, by the way, I do this thing where I just rattle off stuff that's kind of, that's sitting heavy with me and that I pray about. And so you can ask questions after. You all know the story about Sean
Oh,
Fucht,
Hoyt.
Foyt.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say his last name.
Mhm.
I'm sure you're all aware and watching what's happening in Canada. Sean Foyt's concert was canceled because of inclusivity. He goes against everything Canada stands for in terms of inclusivity. And of course, when your biggest moral is inclusiveness and making sure you have inclusive language, of course, you're going to cut out anything you disagree with. And so that's where we're at in Canada. I wanted to say that because it goes hand in hand with the anti-Semitism that we're seeing. It's this lack of principle. We're
Mm.
we're we're moving away from our morals. This has been happening for years. It's not new in Canada, but take this instance and extrapolate it to all of Canada. Any municipality that decides, you know what, this gathering goes against our standards of inclusion and whatever, we're going to shut it down. That's where Canada's at right now. I want to give you a word of encouragement, though. I have been talking with someone in the RCMP. He's a chaplain. He's very high up. I can't say exactly his name or what status he is. He has a
Mhm.
lot of power in the RCMP. He's a chaplain, and they wanted to take out prayer from all of their ceremonies. They wanted to just exclude
Wow.
it, ban it.
Wow.
This was in the last few months. He obviously saw this, went on his knees, begged God to give him some wisdom, and he came up with this solution. He says, let's have a preamble. Let's say we're going to have a time of prayer. If you're not religious, you can have a moment of silence and reflection. If you're religious, if you're some other religion, you can pray in whatever way you feel comfortable, but we're going to have a prayer time.
Mm.
And the RCMP said, let's do it. We'll do that instead of canceling the prayer. So I was very encouraged when I heard that because I feel like this guy single-handedly, with the help of God, of course,
Yeah.
saved prayer from the RCMP. Now, of course, this is a ceremonial prayer, but it's the principle, right? Canada's departing from those principles. So, anyways, I wanted to say all that stuff. I've been rattling off a lot of things. If you have any questions, please ask. I see a lot of people here commenting and stuff here.
That's really good.